I was 100% confident that we were going to be able to bring dinosaurs back to life in a very credible way because they were so flawless and fluid, you know, from the original tests that Dennis Muren and ILM had made for me. I just didn't know whether the audiences were going to buy the re-emergence of dinosaurs in the 20th century. I just wasn't sure that concept, despite the popularity of Michael Crichton's book, was going to be as effective as a movie. I hoped it would, and I certainly was, you know, had my fingers crossed. But you never know about these things. You know, the audience decides for themselves.
It's hard to talk about your favorite movie. What I mean by that first statement is, it's hard to talk about your favorite movie in a critical or analytical sense. It's hard because you want to do this movie justice. After all, it's your favorite. You want to be able to say that the words you wrote here have meaning, that you're actually saying something that adds value to this film that you view as perfect. You don't want to seem too biased, but at the same time, you want to talk about how this movie changed your life, made you fall in love with film, and has been close to your heart since the day you saw it. If you haven't caught on by now, I'm going to attempt to talk about my favorite movie of all time. So, beautiful people of this floating rock,
welcome to Jurassic Park.
If you've watched, I don't know, I'd say at least 2 of my videos, you've probably heard me talk about some of my all-time favorite things in entertainment. Favorite franchise in Star Wars, favorite game in Uncharted 4, but the one thing I haven't spoken about yet is my all-time favorite movie, aka Jurassic Park. I first saw this movie when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old or some age around that, thanks to my dad's VHS copy. That's right, kids, we used to watch movies that came in a box-shaped cassette. Good lord, I sound old. And I'm only 24. Wait, where was I? Oh, right, Jurassic Park. Anyways, I've always been a bit nervous to talk about this movie because, like I said, I wanted to make sure that if I ever did make a video on it, I'd have something meaningful to say. And sure enough, an idea came to me. See, I was watching Jurassic Park one day when it was on TV, and I kept thinking to myself about how the entire opening act, which I describe as these first 4 scenes, is a perfect opening. I decided to take my thoughts to Reddit, which you'll find my initial post linked below, where I talked about how they expertly set up the film's story beats, characters, and payoffs that will obviously come later on. I know this isn't shocking for a film to do, nor did Jurassic Park do it in some unique way, but as one Redditor commented, it's the perfect example of effective and economical storytelling. So, for this week's video, I decided to do a really expanded version of those initial Reddit posts and talk about my all-time favorite movie. With that being said, my name is Nick Poulimenakos, welcome to my YouTube channel, and it's time to jump into why I think the first 4 scenes of Jurassic Park are perfect. It's a cold night on Isla Nublar, where we see several Jurassic Park employees, all armed and tense. Something is arriving, and by the size of the container, we can already assume what it is. Dinosaurs have made their return to the planet they once called home, and we're the reason for it. I love that from this first scene alone, director Steven Spielberg, screenwriter David Koepp, and original Jurassic Park author Michael Crichton are telling us everything we need to know about the idea of bringing dinosaurs back to Earth. It's bad. It's a bad idea. Nothing about what is happening here is okay, and it shouldn't have even gotten this far. It's clear that no one is happy here. Every single time the camera cuts to a close-up of someone's face, they're either incredibly scared or on the brink of pulling the trigger on their guns. It doesn't take long for us as the audience to join the employees in feeling tense, as Spielberg expertly teases what will become one of the main dinosaurs of this franchise, the Velociraptor. Now, of course, we don't even know it's a raptor in that cage yet. All we know is that everyone is freaked and we hear this sound, letting us know that the dinosaur in that cage is probably not one to mess with. At this point, it's almost a given that something will go wrong, and sure enough, the raptor strikes, knocking a poor employee off the top of the cage and, well, you know how the scene goes.
Shoot her!
It's almost maddening when you think about it. Like, how could the cage not lock in place? How is this cage not built to handle such a dangerous creature? Did those in charge not even think to make the cage even more secure because they're hauling a freaking raptor in it? On the outset, you could argue that this is just a plot device to show, oh yeah, dinos are bad and all that jazz. But really, it's just another flawless piece in this already flawless screenplay. If you've seen this movie, you know Jurassic Park creator John Hammond's famous "spared no expense" catchphrase, which he says because he feels he's covered all his bases when it comes to the park's creation and its safety. But obviously from this scene, we know that evidently he hasn't thought this through. None of them have. This whole scene demonstrates that the park is incredibly dangerous, and those operating it, as good-hearted as they may be, are completely incompetent and should have quit while they were ahead. When you really think about it, it's amazing that in a film where the backdrop is a theme park for humans to interact with animals once thought to be extinct, Spielberg opts to immediately showcase the dangers of this project. From here on out, we'll be on edge whenever a dinosaur is on screen. Now, obviously there's the grand moment later on in the film where the dinosaurs are shown in all their gigantic glory, but even then, Spielberg undercuts the joy and excitement with the reveal that Hammond and his team also bred carnivores and apex predators, the very same kind of species we're introduced to here in the film's first sequence. Right from this moment, we know that this park is doomed to fail and that humans have entered into a dangerous game in which they'll probably lose, making for an incredibly tense start to this magnificent film. Talk about a balls to the wall first scene, eh? You'd think they'd follow it up with something even more exciting, or the direct fallout of a man losing his life to a freaking dinosaur and the response to the employees killing said dinosaur, right? Well, not this time. Spielberg decides to take a beat here and follow up that high-intensity death scene with some of the calmest water shots you'll ever see in a movie. By doing a fade into the water, the filmmakers are telling us to breathe, everything is fine, you're no longer near the dinosaurs, just relax. Oh, and while you're relaxing, let me introduce you to this slimy lawyer that you'll definitely root against. It's honestly so funny to me that right after a guy dies at the teeth of a dinosaur? I don't know, hands of the dinosaur sounds weird, so we're going with teeth. The screenplay doesn't introduce us to the victim, anyone they're related to, or, as I said, showcase the fallout to this accident, but a lawyer clearly sent on behalf of Jurassic Park's parent company, InGen's board of directors, to survey the damage done to the park's image. The lawyer, Donald Gennaro, briefly mentions that they're facing a $20 million lawsuit from the victim's family and is curious as to why John Hammond isn't here to discuss the matter. To which Donald's guide says that Hammond couldn't be here, as he's with his daughter who's getting a divorce. I love that that line is thrown in there because it embodies the character of John Hammond so well. Before he's even seen on screen, we can assume that John Hammond is a family man with a good heart. When his daughter needed him, he dropped everything to be by her side as she goes through this traumatic experience. While we don't see this, we can clearly assume that he didn't even think twice about being with his family and went to them. To me, without even being seen, Hammond is someone who, morally speaking, you'd probably trust. But obviously from that first scene, if he's the guy in charge here, you could argue that his priorities may be also misplaced. Someone died on his park grounds and he and his company are being sued for it. You'd think he'd want to be there and mend the situation. But to Hammond, family is all, and he'd spare no expense to make those he loves happy. From the first scene, and that one line especially, we pretty much know everything we need to know about a character we haven't even met yet. But back to the scene at hand, Donald says that they're there because of safety concerns related to Jurassic Park. On the surface, you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, he's a nice lawyer. Clearly he cares for people's safety while at Jurassic Park. But then he follows it up with this line.
The underwriters feel that the accident has raised some very serious safety questions about the park. That makes the investors very, very anxious.
And you realize that this dude only cares about people's safety so they can line their pockets with their money. What a snake! This dude has one concern and only one concern: protecting investments. He's not there out of the goodness of his heart or for the concern of the victim's family. I love how while he traverses the dig site, they come across an amber rock, which again, as we know, houses the DNA that Hammond and his team used to recreate dinosaurs. But from this scene alone, we don't know that yet. We can just infer that it's clearly important, and with Donald and the entire group gathered around, it's obvious that no one is really concerned with park safety, as a major discovery was just made that will keep the money rolling. Immediately, you know that this lawyer is not only bad news, but he won't be the one to shut this place down even when the safety concerns reach an all-time high. And sure enough, once again, both points I just made see payoffs in the second act. I mean, seriously, who the hell leaves two kids in a car during a dinosaur attack? What a rat! I am glad Rexy ate this dude.
Dr. Sattler, we're ready to try again.
I hate computers.
Feelings mutual.
Oh man, finally, we get to the scene I am most excited to talk about today. The introduction to two of my all-time favorite movie characters and the dude who almost causes the deaths of everyone involved here. Who, yeah, I also love. Shocker, I know. Of course, I'm talking about Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and John Hammond, who finally makes his first appearance after previous teases. Of the first four scenes, this one is easily my favorite. It may not be as exciting as the first, or even as funny as the last, but everything about this entire sequence is just, ooh, so perfect. The intro to both Ellie and Alan is done so well, showcasing that they're not in this just for the money, but because they clearly have a love and passion for dinosaurs. Spielberg opens with both of them on the ground, brushing the dirt off a newly discovered fossil. They're in the thick of it along with their team, and are definitely more comfortable being out on the job rather than being behind a computer. You see, I was deliberate with that computer line there because it directly relates to Alan Grant and his character traits. When researching how a screenwriter should introduce a character, I came across an article from Masterclass, which lists about 5 different ways to make a character stick in a person's mind. One of the options was giving your character a memorable trait right from the start, and when looking at Alan, screenwriters Michael Crichton and David Koepp execute this beautifully. Alan's first line in this entire movie is,
I hate computers.
showcasing how technologically inept he would be throughout this film. Like I said, he'd rather play in the dirt than deal with machines, which could be interpreted a few different ways. For one, in a film about uncovering the past owners of our planet, Alan can be interpreted as someone who is stuck in the past, unable to evolve for this advanced future he currently lives in. For another, Alan's hard exterior and refusal to understand basic technology like computers also keeps him from really connecting to those around him. I mean, hell, it's obvious that the main reason why Ellie tolerates him is because they're so alike, with her first line in the film also confirming that she hates computers. Ellie evidently has somewhat of a softer exterior compared to the walls Alan has built around himself, allowing her to adapt more easily to situations, but she's also shown to be as stuck in the past as he is, kicking off her own arc of realizing when to stop screwing with a power we know very little about. Jumping back to Alan though, and his many defining character traits, the other one that sticks out to me the most is his relationship with children, which of course sucks. He doesn't like kids. From this scene alone, he clearly doesn't understand them. When the kid pipes up about the raptor not being scary, Alan's first instinct isn't to educate the kid nicely, he wants to put the fear of God into him. And I eat that up every time I see it. Good lord, Sam Neill is so good here. This scene perfectly sets up Alan's overall arc in the film, as we see that he'll essentially be forced to confront his ways of dealing with children when Tim and Lex arrive. It's almost like putting this initial scene here can be viewed as a misdirect, like a way to make the audiences think it's just here for comedic purposes. You know, haha, Alan is scaring the kid about the dangers of dinosaurs, bet something like this won't come up again on an island where dinosaurs were brought back to life, right? And then boom.
A child.
Alan's worst fears have arrived, but as the film goes on, something changes in Alan, almost like he immediately realizes the true danger of what he's gotten himself into, and his lone priority now is to save the children, especially when Rexy arrives. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. As I said, there's one final character that finally gets an introduction here, and that's John Hammond, creator of Jurassic Park and the one who officially kicks the story into high gear. This is probably my favorite character introduction and plot setup in the entire franchise. Before he even appears in this scene, Hammond's classic spared no expense mindset is once again on full display. The dude flies himself out to recruit Alan and Ellie so that they can check out Jurassic Park and provide an endorsement for it, rationalizing that if a paleontologist and a paleobotanist can back the park, then they should move ahead with the project. Hammond arrives in a helicopter, landing atop the fossil that Alan's crew had been digging for. I mean, is there a bigger indication of who Hammond is compared to this scene? We haven't even seen Jurassic Park yet, and we can already tell that the man in charge doesn't think so far ahead. I already mentioned how the first scene shows that, but here we see why Jurassic Park is in the place it's in. Hammond and his helicopter don't even think about the damage he could have done for landing so close to the fossil. But I guess it doesn't matter because here comes the man playing God, dressed in pristine white, ready to make Alan and Ellie's dreams come true. See, I think it's pretty on the nose that Hammond is introduced to us in all white clothing. Hammond comes across as this soft-spoken, kind, yet larger-than-life person who on the outset seems innocent, pure of heart, simple, and good. A man has died, he almost destroyed a new fossil, but he doesn't see himself as the bad guy here. And he isn't, per se, at least in the movie version, but he's just so distracted and focused on the idea of forging a new future, and like I said, playing God, that he doesn't see the risks involved in the decisions he makes. Ian Malcolm, of course, calls him out on it in this clip here.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
But from this scene already, we know who Hammond is and the damage his park will inevitably cause because he's so naive to see anything else. To balance his inevitable stupidity, however, Hammond is written, as I said before, to be someone with a good heart and with good, albeit misaligned, intentions. Hammond clearly cares for those around him and the people who will eventually be coming to his park. It's this aspect of him that makes rooting for him all the more painful. Clearly this guy isn't evil. Clearly this guy wants to make a difference in this world. And clearly this guy sees himself as the one who can bridge a forgotten history with the present. I mean, hell, who wouldn't want to see dinosaurs in the flesh? But again, we know this is a bad idea. We know it isn't going to end well. And that's what makes seeing Hammond's realization of the dangers of his inventions all the more tragic. Because he really, truly had the best intentions at heart. He was just too blinded by the magnificence of his creations to realize how dangerous Jurassic Park truly was.
You shouldn't use my name.
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares. Nice hat.
Newman. Or I guess, in this case, Dennis Nedry. A simple, short scene that expertly sets up the conflict in this film, as well as our main human villain. The crazy thing about this scene in the movie is that it's only like 2 minutes long, but even with not a lot of time, Spielberg and his filmmaking team once again shine in the effective and economic storytelling department as we get everything we need to know about Nedry in a few quick moments. We start with seeing Nedry eating alone at a restaurant in Costa Rica. Obviously, he's an important guy as we see our well-dressed, stressed-out mystery man search and finally find him. But I love how in our first interaction with Nedry, he's seen stuffing his face with food. One plate down, on to the next one. It's a quick and effective visual metaphor to tell us that this dude is greedy. He wants more and he's not going to let anyone tell him otherwise. But we still don't know who he is yet. That is, until Dodson reveals an insane amount of cash for Nedry so that he can steal dinosaur embryos for a rival company that employs Dodson. We're not told what role Nedry serves, nor are we even told what role Dodson serves for the rival company, just that he's brokering a deal where Nedry will steal these dinosaur embryos. It's amazing how, even without knowing who Nedry is, we see that he's an absolute weasel who will do anything for money. He's greedy, narcissistic, important, and is very willing to rob Hammond of his dream. On the surface, it's pretty cut and dry that he's a villain. Or is he?
Time to find out.
No, yeah, he's totally a villain, and the rest of the movie proves it, but the reason I set up that little cliffhanger there is because there's one line in this scene, right before it cuts to the freaking incredible Journey to the Island sequence, that perfectly showcases why Nedry is actually doing this. When comparing the Jurassic Park movie to its source material, it's obvious that a lot of the backstory for certain characters and relationships had to be cut for time constraints, one of which is Hammond's and Nedry's relationship. Nedry's book storyline remains largely unchanged here, but what the book does explain is that Nedry was in charge of Jurassic Park's computer systems, and that at some point, InGen forces Nedry to change a lot of the system without further compensation, so he betrays Hammond and turns to Dodgson, leading to the whole dino embryo heist. In the movie, since Hammond's character is largely changed to be much more sympathetic, it makes sense that a lot of this was cut, as it would have added a much darker element to the, as I view it, Walt Disney-inspired theme park creator. In the movie, after Nedry is handed the bill for his massive food order, he says,
Don't get cheap on me, Dodgson. That was Hammond's mistake.
That one line is all we need to hear, and Nedry's character motivations are solidified, as well as once again confirming that Hammond is still not well equipped to be handling a business like this. While it may seem that Nedry is just greedy and annoying, you can infer that for someone to go to this length to screw Hammond and help his biggest competitor, there has to be a personal element to this. Of course the money is playing a big factor here, but if all he cared about was the funds, I don't think he would have thrown that dig at Hammond. Something happened between the two of them that's not fixable, and whether it's the storyline from the novel or something else entirely, it adds yet another layer to both Nedry and Hammond's characterizations in this phenomenal film. Oh, and how could I forget that Nedry gearing up to literally rob Jurassic Park of dinosaur embryos adds more tension to the idea that something will most definitely go wrong. With every passing scene, you become a little more nervous over this idea of a theme park with dinosaurs, and Nedry's reveal that he's going to not only rob his own company, but also potentially tamper with the security system of the park to do it, just continues the idea of everyone involved here being led to their doom. Will they survive? Not all of them, but some will. And when they do, John Williams' absolutely breathtaking musical score will be there to guide you through every pulse-pounding moment.
My interest is making a good movie that honors the existence of dinosaurs, even juxtaposed with man today, which is a little bit out of kilter with actuality. But if the movie is honorable and can get people to say, gee, this is the first time I've really seen a dinosaur. This isn't Gorgo, this isn't Godzilla. This is really a movie that I think is really happening as I'm watching it. Action!
I'm going to keep this short and sweet and try not to go off on yet another tangent as to why I think this is Spielberg's best, greatest, most perfect, most awe-inspiring, I think you get the picture, movie ever. There's really nothing more to say here other than this. I don't think anything I've outlined here is particularly groundbreaking, at least in an objective sense. I just freaking adore how Michael Crichton, Dave Koepp, and Steven Spielberg set up everything we need to know about this movie in 4 scenes that span like 15 minutes total. Plot points are perfectly teased, character arcs are beautifully introduced and set up for terrific payoffs, and it's all done in the most effective and economical way possible. There's an endless sea of reasons why I consider Jurassic Park to be my favorite movie of all time, and it all starts with these 4 perfect scenes. Hello, insanely awesome YouTube community. Thanks so much for checking out my video essay on Jurassic Park. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Poulimenakos, and I've been Nick Poulimenakos, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.